The Xbox Series S is the smallest console of this generation. Released in 2020, its reveal caused a stir, with some predicting it would drag the gaming industry down. Now, amidst the landscape of full-priced games filled with microtransactions, this concern seems almost laughable. Instead, the Xbox Series S has become celebrated for being the most affordable way to play current games. Let's discuss how it stands in 2024. We have a reason to talk about it, not just because it's been 3 years since this generation was released, but also due to rumors that Microsoft might cease production of the console and focus on publishing. Spoiler, Microsoft held a special conference addressing these rumors, making the discussion even more intriguing. So let's discuss how the weakest console of the 9th generation is doing, Microsoft's plans for its gaming division, and answer the big question, should you buy an Xbox Series S in 2024? And let's get started. First, it's worth noting that 3 years have passed and the console hasn't failed as some haters predicted. It still runs current games without issue, except for a hiccup with Baldur's Gate 3, which required Microsoft to send staff to Larian Studios. Even then, they couldn't resolve the split-screen mode issue, possibly due to the game's resource demands for rendering large locations on 2 screens. Nevertheless, the main mode of Baldur's Gate 3 runs smoothly on the Xbox Series S. Other games continue to play well, and new releases keep coming. However, there is a noticeable difference between the Series S and its more powerful counterpart, the Series X. And it's not just about resolution. Microsoft initially pitched the Series S for Full HD and the Series X for 4K gaming. Of course that too, but the most significant difference for me is the graphics. On Series S, it's more blurry with a shorter draw distance and no graphics settings options in some games. For example, on Series X there might be a performance mode for 60+ FPS with lower graphics or 30 FPS with detailed visuals. But on Series S, it's usually the first option, but with 30 FPS. However, this problem is not critical. I consider it incredibly foolish to complain about a console that costs as much as a previous generation one in the secondary market, where you can find it for about $200, the price of a PS4 Pro, a previous generation console that no longer gets current games. Here, you get the entire library, albeit without top-tier graphics, but with the ability to play whatever you want. And this is not an exaggeration. You can play everything, from new releases to older games via backward compatibility, which, unlike PlayStation, goes back to the 7th generation of consoles, and that's the Xbox 360, which had many top-tier games, in my opinion, better than what comes out now. For example, take Assassin's Creed. It used to focus on story and world building rather than scale and grind, which now seems designed for monetization in single-player games, which sounds absurd. New parts at least immerse you in ancient settings, providing a new gaming experience. But they aim not for gaming pleasure, but for commercial gain, as games are now made not by players, but by managers. But I digress. The library allows you to get lost in it for days. Of course, old games look worse than new ones, but here, Microsoft offers a unique feature: automatic enhancements for old games. First, if you enable FPS boost in some games, it raises the frame rate. Auto HDR makes colors and the overall picture more pleasant. The console itself tries to smooth out rough edges and enhance texture clarity. I don't know how they did it, but the difference is indeed impressive. I recently pulled out an old Xbox One for a review, and on the new generation, the graphics are significantly better. And that's even in games that haven't received updates for the current generation, and there are such games. In some old games, you can see the optimized for Xbox Series sign, meaning the developers manually enhanced this game for free, unlike some paid updates for old games from Sony. In general, I can talk about games for a long time because I'm a gamer, and I enjoy it. But certainly the killer feature of the console is Game Pass, a subscription including hundreds of great games. Of course, tastes vary, but it has all possible genres, and Microsoft is expanding it by buying game studios, like the recent historic deal for Activision, bringing not only Call of Duty, but many other games into Microsoft's fold. According to agreements, these games will be released on PlayStation for some time, but on Xbox, they will be available for free in the subscription. Plus, the company buys third-party games for its subscription. And while there were indeed few games in the previous generation, now there's something interesting for everyone. Plus, the subscription allows you to play games you wouldn't usually pay attention to. But the most important thing for me is that once you buy the console, you can be sure it will run all games until the end of the generation, another 3-4 years, without needing to upgrade the hardware like on a PC. This makes the console ideal for budget gaming. And even for the average player who doesn't scrutinize pixels with a magnifying glass or chase FPS numbers, but simply wants to play cool games after work or school, relaxing on the couch or in front of a monitor, This little console offers that opportunity. The difference with the Series X is in size, price, and of course, graphics. But again, the graphics on the white console are not horrible. Therefore, my opinion is if you just want to play without worrying about upgrading hardware, installing drivers, and tweaking game settings, but simply want to launch a game and enjoy the gameplay, this is the ideal option. For about $250, you get a huge library of games, including all modern releases, older games, and Game Pass, so you don't have to buy each game separately. But it all sounds too positive, so let's talk about the downsides. First of all, of course, it's memory. There is half a terabyte installed here, of which about 100 and more is occupied by the system, so we are left with about 350 gigabytes for installing games. There are several solutions to this problem. The first is memory cards, which cost the same as the console itself or so, which is not very profitable. The second is to replace the internal drive with a larger one. You can do it yourself disassembling the console, and you can contact the service. And the third option is to buy the second version of Series S in black color. It already has a whole terabyte of memory. True, and costs more because of this, but if you count the price of an additional drive, it comes out about equally. The second problem is something that many beginners do not know about. This is a paid online, that is, if on the PC you just buy the game, download and play. Here, you still have to pay for online. Earlier for this, you needed a Live Gold subscription, but now it has been renamed to Game Pass Core, pouring some games and other small things. But the main thing is that you can't play online without it. But there's a nuance. For free games like Apexa, Fortnite, Warzone, and others, this subscription is not needed. That is, you can play free games for free. But say in some parts of Call of Duty, Battlefield, PUBG, and other paid games, you need this subscription. The same works on PlayStation, just not all newcomers know about it. Another limitation is that a console won't replace a PC. You can connect a keyboard and mouse, but they will only work in some games. There's no piracy, and games often cost more than on PC, but these are general console issues. In the past 3 years, I haven't found more significant downsides. It runs quietly, plays all modern games, and games can be bought cheaper using keys from Argentina. The console itself is relatively affordable, making it ideal for budget gaming while keeping up with the times. The main point is, you get the same functionality as more expensive consoles, but for less money, if you're willing to accept the mentioned nuances. The graphical difference is noticeable, but it's not worth complaining about at this price. A lot of people still hate Xbox for lack of novelty. That is, the transition from the old to the new generation feels like a replacement of PC components, while Sony rolled out in a new style of operating system, and of course amazed everyone with their new gamepad. But there are rumors that Mikey are preparing a response to DualSense, making their own gamepad with the same chips. Whether it will actually be, we'll know only in time. After all, according to other rumors, Microsoft is going to fold the gaming division, becoming a publisher of games. And at this point, I had to re-record this part, because while the video was rendering, Microsoft came out with a press conference and dispelled most of the rumors. So this part just goes into the trash, but I suggest to discuss what interesting things Mikey told there. First of all, given their haste and not scheduled to go online with answers, they clearly do not give a damn about the fans. And taking into account the streamlined wording, we can assume that something is coming, but they clearly do not want to anger fans. So far from the conference, it became known that of course no one on Xbox is not going to score. Moreover, even prepare for the release of a new console, but this was already known from leaks earlier. The most important nuance is that Mike's will really release games on PlayStation, but it will not be some hits, but something from the category of indie. And if they sell well, then probably we should expect the release of other games, but with a delay of about half a year to a year after the release on Xbox, as Sony does with releases on PC. And there's no need to be surprised about it. Mikey invests huge sums in buying studios and developing games, and Xbox is still not the most popular console, and the costs have to be recouped somehow. I don't really care if the games will be released on Plyka, the main thing is that their quality doesn't suffer, and we get a good product at the end because some box exclusives have been having problems lately. But in general, the whole industry is in crisis, so Xbox Series S is the best console of the 9th generation, in my opinion. Yes, it has a lot of nuances, but considering the cost, most people don't care about it. What does it matter what graphics or how many FPS if for a relatively small amount of money you can play all the same games? You get access to the Game Pass library, and most importantly, having paid once $300, you can be sure that in a couple of years we'll not have to update the console as iron on the PC to play the next novelty. After all, you can see how Microsoft is trying to keep the promise that this console will live to the end of the generation, even helping developers to optimize games for their console. Personally, I have yet to see people who are dissatisfied with this little thing. After all, for its price, it is just perfect. Of course, write your opinion in the comments we will discuss. And that's all for today. Thank you for watching to the end. Subscribe to the channel, put likes in support of the video, and see you in the future.